My name is Clara Towson, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
First ever Wimbledon title. You're going to go long. Second serve here for Carlos Alcaraz. Alcaraz, remember, has to win the next 3 points, or Jannik Sinner is the Wimbledon champion. Carlos Alcaraz's crown is hanging by a thread right now. Sinner, second serve. Where are you going? Into the backhand of Carlos. It's a good backhand return, and Jannik Sinner next on the backhand side. 1 championship point saved. 2 to go. Keep hitting that like button, by the way, people. And please keep subscribing as I get close to losing my voice. As it goes to a high pitch there. Once you hit subscribe, you'll see that number tick over. But the only number that Jannik Sinner wants to see tick over right now is the one that will indicate that he's the champion of Wimbledon for this year. Here we go. Jannik Sinner serving. Down the tee. It's a good serve, and it's won him the Wimbledon title of 2025.
By the commentary, I mean, you would have thought that was like a 5th set deciding tiebreak or something like that. But actually, no, it was not. However, yeah, that's mostly what we're going to talk about with Jack today. It's ATP Weekly, but, you know, it's a Wimbledon episode first and foremost. And today, obviously, we had the Jannik Sinner Carlos Alcaraz Wimbledon final. Had an audience of 300 plus, really. Wow. Okay, that's pretty insane. And yeah, I mean, Jack, first of all, was it a disappointment? You know, were the people who entered this thinking this will be just as good as the Roland Garros final? You know, what are they thinking right now?
If anybody went into that thinking it was going to be just as good as the Roland Garros title, they were setting themselves up for a disappointment. Is the first thing I'd say. But I thought it was a fantastic match. I really enjoyed it. I wasn't expecting Roland Garros by any means, and I mean, just by nature of the surface, you're going to get a probably shorter match. So maybe even from the offset, you're like, well, it has to be lower quality. There's no way they're going to get to 5 hours and 30 minutes or so. I really enjoyed it. Great match. I imagine most people won't be disappointed with that match in terms of quality. It was pretty good. And yeah, loads to talk about there. Obviously, it indicates a lot for the rivalry. Really, really big milestone for Jannik Sinner. Yeah, plenty to talk about, Damien. Excited to dig into it with you.
Yeah, so let's go kind of chronologically, you know. Sinner went up 4-2 in the opening set, lost the next 4 games. There's a fair few points there that, you know, it's like longer exchanges and Carlos survives them. There's basically, you know, he has obviously the better movement on grass, more variety in the likes. And, you know, when Alcaraz wins the first set, I suppose it's like, you know, the situation is looking really good for him, especially as he's rattling off the last 4 games. And like, yeah, you know, what happened then? You know, where did that go?
Yeah, so we're going straight into the match analysis. Love it. So that first set, I was pretty confident for Alcaraz in a lot of ways. But let's talk. Well, I'll tell you what I kind of thought, kind of big picture, and you can dig into that a bit and tell me if you agree or not. Sinner, first and foremost, definitely served better. That was a huge difference maker. Hit spots really, really well from kind of seconds onwards, particular moments in the second set where it was really, really crucial. But there's loads of little moments you could pick out where risky second serves as well that really, really made a difference, you know, respecting the fact that Alcaraz was probably up in most points where, especially in that first set where, you know, he was getting a meaningful return. So second serve return points probably pretty high, I would imagine. And the first serve return points as well in that first set, I remember now. So it was all kind of going Alcaraz's way in terms of return points. So Sinner upped his service, and he kind of, you know, before the match, you always expected him to serve better. And honestly, on that alone, I still thought on that alone it wasn't going to be enough for Sinner to win the match. I still fancied Alcaraz to win it. So there had to be some kind of special moments kind of littered throughout the match for Jannik to win it. And you could probably pick that out in certain moments. The end of the second set comes to mind in particular, where Alcaraz maybe could have had a little bit of a fight back in that second set to make it closer. Obviously, if Alcaraz wins that second set, he fancies chances. But Sinner just went lights out on some forehands, really stuff that, you know, he looked like he was always making. He just redlined for a while. It didn't look like he was doing anything that was outside of his capabilities. Just total clarity for a few games, and it became really, really crucial. And I don't know how you rate Alcaraz's performance. I would have said, serving wise, he looked like he was maybe getting, don't want to say desperate, but certainly pushing a bit more than he is capable of, I would say, still at this stage of his career. And there was maybe a few moments where Sinner was kind of bullying Alcaraz not bullying, but forcing Alcaraz into going for a little bit too much in the forehand. And from the back of the court, it started to shift in Sinner's favour. So it was really, really interesting in terms of the serve stuff in particular. I thought for Sinner to raise his level that much was, he really deserved to win this match. And I don't think that even if it went to a fifth set, I still would have fancied Sinner's chances. We could maybe argue against that possibly, but that's how I felt. I just thought it was a matter of time for him to win the way he was serving second, third, fourth. So don't know how you feel, Damon.
Yeah, I think first serve percentage, like these things sometimes tend to be a little like overrated because it also depends on how you're serving, like what your serving strategy is. So I tend to avoid looking at the numbers really. There's a few things to touch on here though. I mean, first of all, I think Alcaraz from the start of the second set was very unfocused, which is not atypical for him, but it is atypical for him in this particular matchup. Like he's said it before as well, that against Sinner he just knows he has to be locked in every single point because otherwise it's going to be punished, and like it quickly was. Second set, I know, he could have maybe pushed it a bit closer, but at the same time he could have been just like gone 15 minutes earlier. There was that third game which he easily could have lost. There he actually for a while just kind of like starts doing that, you know, whole professor thing, kind of, and just outmaneuvering Jannik for like 4 points in a row. But again, he was in a difficult spot. And then also the 40 love that he almost ended up losing the game from. And I just think for the entire next three sets, he was the one who was just a little not there mentally and was definitely just not as focused, not as locked in. He was the one who was having like some doubts, the lack of self-belief compared to Jannik. I also do think that Jannik made a really good adjustment after the opening set. I think I said something on Twitter, which actually ended up being even better than I thought. But it was something along the lines of like, Jannik cannot be playing points like that against Carlos on grass. He needs to like go for the first strike a lot more. That's how he beat him in 2022. That's how he beats him typically in quicker conditions, you know, just that first strike velocity having even more oomph. And in sets 2, 3, and 4, like his in attack percentages were just insane. He was like 40% or something like that, which barely ever happens. You know, it's not really a matchup between an attacking and a defensive player. It's a matchup of two attacking players, and you couldn't really see it. I think Alcaraz was struggling a ton to just kind of find his moments in that match, really, to like bounce back. He was kind of playing like against Djokovic in Australia, where he was just defending quite a lot. And then when he had the opportunity to pounce on the forehand, you could see that he's just not confident with it, like just doesn't have the rhythm. So, I think Sinner used the surface very well to like what his strengths are and kind of made the assets that Alcaraz has on it just irrelevant for the most part. Thank you, Ghosty, by the way. $20. Wow.
Yeah, thank you, Ghosty. I totally agree with that. And before the match, you know, I was kind of touting Alcaraz on, you know, variety and just being able to kind of be one step ahead of, as you say, kind of professor mode some of the time. But yeah, you're totally right. It kind of became negligent. Alcaraz just not being allowed to kind of dictate points or kind of be one step ahead a lot of the time, and the drop shots as well, kind of a bit all over the place as a result. You know, that's totally part and parcel of the same kind of thing. And I really liked what you said. Alcaraz was a wee bit up and down in terms of mental performance, and that's been a kind of constant throughout the tournament. It's not just been just for this match. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a result of Alcaraz maybe trying to find, as he mentioned, a bit of the kind of joy on the court, and on a grass court he loves to kind of just throw in different things, play instinctually, and it maybe bit him a little bit today because Sinner was just so clinical, able to kind of just mop up a lot of the time, as you say, and attack so often. And I'd love to see this final over and over again, Damien. I genuinely would. It was very exciting. I really don't think it's going to get bored, because as you say, it's interesting to see the two players make little adjustments as they go, and you never really get the sense, even if Alcaraz's self-belief is low, that he's really ever completely out of it, obviously, after the French Open final. So it was proper nail-biting, and I'm sure for Sinner fans, they'll be really, really, they won't take this win for granted at all. It'll really, really be cherished. And I don't know if that's a good segue into maybe talking about the rivalry as a whole, but if you had anything else to add about the match.
I think we'll start more or less talking about the rivalry a bit more. But yeah, Jean even mentioned it in the chat earlier that we just hadn't seen a match between them in like quicker conditions in a while.
Yeah.
So that added to the intrigue, definitely changed something here, because like that's exactly how Jannik was able to take the match. You mentioned the serve earlier as well of Alcaraz, which I think is, was perfectly fine and still like improved than the previous versions. It's just that Sinner's return is insane. And, all the 1-2 punches that he was getting there, that was just something that I don't think any other opponent was really, right now at least, going to be able to do to Carlos. So, I mean, in terms of that as well, does this make the rivalry a lot more exciting now that Jannik has fought back? It was 5 in a row. And I do agree as well. That was one thing that I wanted to say, that, it never really felt like Alcaraz is out of this match. He had these 2 breakpoints, right, in the 4th set, which he kind of blew. Like, Sinner didn't do anything special. Yeah. So there was still, ample opportunity for him to get back into this 4th set. No idea what it would have meant later. Does he even win the 4th set? Does he win the 5th? I have no clue. But indeed, maybe because of Roland Garros, but also because of how the 4th set transpired, it always felt like there is that chance for another 5-setter. And I mean, I just basically think that the more we get this matchup, that there's no person in the tennis world that should be unhappy about getting this matchup, even if it's other players. Because if you are, I don't know, probably like Alexander Zverev or somebody who really wants to win their first Grand Slam will not be happy about this matchup happening over and over again. But everybody else really should, because of these guys, you're going to be more popular. Because of these guys, you're going to be earning more money. Because of these guys, tennis is going to be, a better product.
Yeah. The one thing I would mention just before we move on, I think it is quite important to just mention quickly, and Jean in the chat, has also mentioned it very quickly, just about Alcaraz's kicker being ineffective against Sinner. He I think has lent on that serve for so long during his career that maybe going for those kind of bigger second serves still isn't quite natural to him, and you can kind of see Sinner, in some sticky situations he pulled it off a lot more often than Alcaraz, and you could count up some pretty crucial moments where that serve really, really came into effect. Big sliders, you're talking like 117 miles an hour sometimes out wide. To save really, really big points, big tee serves. I'm sure there was a massive one just to get out of that really sticky 4-3 game in the 4th set, down the tee in the ad court. And for Alcaraz, obviously, for that to be his most effective serve on some other surfaces, yes, he's made the adjustment, and his serve, as you say, has been a lot better, and it was still really good in this match. But when the second serve was kind of lent on a little bit more, 100% Sinner serve better, definitely. And I think that was a crucial factor in the match.
Yeah, so 9-5 in the head-to-head now. Sinner stops the rat. 5 in a row it was. First win since Beijing 2023. So yeah, basically, this is better now for the rivalry as well, right? I mean, if Alcaraz won this match, let's say from 2 match points down again, you'd have some serious doubts in Jannik's ability to like stand up to him the next time they play and what his mental state would be. But now it's just like, there's the story kind of like grows regardless of who wins, really.
Totally, absolutely. I mean, it really could have been a a jumping off point for the rivalry to go in one direction for a long time. And I'm sure the Sinner team, even if they'd lost here, would probably have found a way. But you just felt, I mean, for the public and maybe very, very, subconsciously a percent or two going into any match, you would consider Alcaraz the favourite, definitely. Now it still feels like anything can happen in the rivalry. You don't feel like them meeting in any slam final is a given. You just felt like there was a bit of scar tissue that needed mopping up, obviously after the French Open, and it was well needed because of that final, I think, just to make sure there was no mental edge for Alcaraz long term. So yeah, honestly, I was probably supporting Alcaraz slightly. I know you're probably on the fence, Damon, but I was probably I prefer Alcaraz as a player, so I've kind of warmed to him. I probably do support him a little more than Sinner. But honestly, as Sinner started to win the match, I was like, do you know what? Great. I would prefer this for the rivalry long term. We don't want to see it going one-sided, and for them to be splitting the last two slams like that, it's great for the sport, I think.
Yeah, honestly, I was a little surprised even how neutral I was, because typically, like, Alcaraz is my favorite of the top players for sure. He's just the most fun to watch. He's the most doesn't care about the efficiency of his game at all. He just goes out there, waves the magic wand, and does whatever. And I like that. These are the kind of players I tend to enjoy. I don't really want to see like robotic, very efficient players like Sinner. But yeah, I was watching this match and just thinking, honestly, yeah, I mean, Jannik is playing great. He made the right adjustments. He's so much calmer than Carlos. He just totally deserves to win today, and it's fine. At Roland Garros, I was sitting in my room and I was like, vamos seeing a lot. And, I was pumped during that entire Roland Garros final. I was not neutral there. But today, I was surprised how little I cared if Alcaraz won this match. And in fact, every feeling that I had after I saw the result and after I saw how it played out was just, yeah, I mean, the better player won on the day. And
yeah, I'm kind of the same. I found myself quite happy for Jannik as well. Like, it's quite nice to see. Obviously, he wasn't short on slams, and you can quickly talk about the implications of that. Obviously, he was 3 points away from winning the Jannik Slam, 4 slams in a row. Hindsight's everything though, and FFF, right? Some famous man talked about that at some point during their career, and
why would it be the Jannik Slam, by the way?
I don't know. The Jannik Slam, just 4 slams in a row.
Okay.
I coined it here first, Damien. I guess I don't know. Whatever you want to call it, 4 slams in a row anyway. It would have been, but. I don't know, like, there's not much point talking about it, I feel, because it didn't happen. It'd be different if Wimbledon was the potential 4th one, but with the French Open missing the preceding slam, I don't really see the point. It's like, well, no, he wasn't really 3 points away.
So are we finally done with this whole, the stupid conversations like, is Sinner good on clay? Is Sinner good on grass? Because I still saw a lot of them during this year, People, I don't know, Jannik is entering the French Open final and people are like, no, he cannot beat Alcaraz because it's clay. He cannot play on clay. Jannik is losing to Bublik in Halle and everybody's like, no, he's just horrible on grass. He's obviously not going to win Wimbledon.
Yeah.
Just stop it, I don't think he's quite as like all surface versatile as Alcaraz is, but I mean, obviously he can win in any conditions right now.
Yeah, I don't see the point in that. It's very, just kind of subreddit tennis kind of chat. I don't really see the point. Probably Twitter, a bit of tennis Twitter. I don't know, just random people who come up with random opinions about stuff, and really they've not watched as many matches as they should be watching. Because if you've watched Jannik playing clay, if you've watched Jannik playing grass, then I don't know how you get to that opinion, really. There's not that many holes in his game. There aren't really any holes in his game at the moment, Damon, I would argue. It's pretty tricky to point them out.
Yeah, 5-4 right now. Obviously, the race has already been this close between these two in terms of the slam titles. 4-3 it used to be before Roland Garros. Could have been 4-4 there. And then who knows what happens at Wimbledon. But yeah, these implications, of course, maybe we'll be talking about them in like 20 years. Like the episodes we did for like Rafa and which points could have changed his career. I feel like definitely, these are the kind of Roland Garros, these are the kind of matches that in 10 years' time might get talked about even more. But anyway, right now it's very close, and I mean, it's just kind of impossible to look too far into the future with these two. Obviously, Alcaraz is a little younger, but right now they're just so far ahead of the rest of the players. And Sinner has also that advantage of, again, efficiency and the fact that you can always kind of like bank on him getting to the final and beating all the players along the way. Well, maybe not always. We will talk about a certain player later for sure. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that it's just impossible to look that far into the future right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little pointless. It's totally exciting though, and honestly, I don't see anybody even really being a contender to them. I know there's up and coming players, but without them, showing us they can patch up those holes in their game, then what's the point in getting excited? I think a really good example would be, obviously, you were previously talking about a trifecta of like Alcaraz, Sinner, Rune. But Rune is a million miles away from these guys at the moment. Like, and we knew we've never thought Rune was close to being a complete player, and that was the same time Sinner and Alcaraz weren't complete players. It's pointless until you know these guys have the potential to be number one and number two in the world. Do you know what I mean? And by a long distance. And honestly, for you look at a player like Alcaraz's performance this tournament, he honestly never played insanely well. I think he played better last Wimbledon in general. I'm not just talking about the final. I mean, throughout his tournament run, he was really up and down. He was never kind of fully dialed in. But you never thought he was losing to anybody. I'm sure nobody was watching that Taylor Fritz match when he had 2 set points in the fourth and thinking Alcaraz could go out here. It's going to be a Fritz Sinner final. I just, nobody has that feeling at the moment, and that's proper Big Three territory where you just felt like these guys were Big Four territory. You actually said Big Four as well, Damien. Sorry, Big Four territory where you felt like it was always going to be these guys in the final. By the way, for the viewers at home, it's the first final in since 2002 that hasn't featured a member of the Big Four, or Djokovic or Federer, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, probably what you mentioned has also changed, because I remember at Roland Garros there was this very weird freak out on Twitter when Alcaraz lost the set to Damir Dzumhur, and people were like, "Oh, I can see him losing." And I was just, what the hell? I mean, call me when he's like 0-3 down in the fifth, what are you talking about? So I think that's also changed. But yeah, I also saw this funny comment the other day. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was basically someone asking a Carlos Alcaraz fan, hey, does he ever have this when like he plays 60-70% for the entire tournament and then sort of like turns it on in the final? Has he ever had that situation? I'm asking you because you're the biggest Carlos Alcaraz fan. And I'm just reading this comment and thinking, where are you at Roland Garros? This is literally like exactly what he's been doing, right? Just not playing kind of very casually for the entire event, and then potentially when he has to, turning it on. Maybe today he didn't, but yeah, it's very much what he can do. And Jannik as well. I mean, that's just basically represents how much ahead they are of the rest of the field. I think that, the Fritz semi, it will kind of stick with me as maybe the toughest moment for Alcaraz for sure, despite going 5 with Fognini. I would have been a little bit worried about him in the fifth, I think. Just it's grass. It's one per game, and you might be out of the set.
Yeah, totally. I get your point, but I still just didn't feel it. You know what I mean? And he didn't lose that fourth set. So I know I mentioned the fifth set, but he didn't lose that fourth set, and that's just the kind of stuff that Alcaraz does. He just turns it on when he needs to, and there's not many other players that can, kind of raise that level above his when they need to as well. So it just doesn't feel like the two of them are touchable right now.
Yeah, so do we now address the elephant in the room? I guess so. I mean, Jannik Sinner, he was almost out of this tournament in the fourth round.
Yeah,
0-2 down.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Let's talk about that. Yeah,
I called it legendary today that on Twitter, that this story is like legendary. It actually wasn't the focus of my tweet at all. It was like, okay, this story is now legendary, but that doesn't matter. Jannik did this and that. But somebody was like, you're misusing the word legendary, walkovers happen. I don't think so. I mean, I think this is something that we're going to be mentioning for like years to come, because it's just 100%. Such a unique situation. I can see this being a stat that people bring up, really for decades, because we've never seen something like this. The eventual champion, the world number one, 0-2 down, and there's a major difference between this and a walkover.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you say, it's unprecedented. This is not something that's happened before. I mean, I don't. There's not even really that much talking about ifs, buts, and maybes. I don't think Sinner was winning that match. I just don't. I'm sure people could argue that, but Dimitrov was playing by far well enough, and Sinner was 100% off. Like, he was not completely on his game that day. So anyway, it's pointless, and for that to happen is just insane. As you say, it's not something that's ever happened before. So I don't know how people can shrug it off as nothing. And Sinner himself didn't really, obviously very gracious and talked about the fact it didn't feel like a win, and he's probably being genuine, I would imagine. But I'm sure he was over it in 2 days, so I'm sure it wasn't the end of the world for him. Insane though, Damien. Insane.
Yeah, Grigor Dimitrov, there's a lot of conversation as well as to, as you said, whether he actually would have won the match from that position. I think it was 2 games all in the 5th set when the injury happened, or at least when it was way too much for Grigor to keep going with it. Yeah, I mean, he was really playing out of his mind. He was on the way to the best win of his career. Is it possible that he would have, blown it, that he would have gotten into his own head? Yeah, sure. I mean, we've seen that many times happening to Dimitrov. I don't know if from that position, I can't really name a win or loss where he was 2 sets to love up.
Yeah.
Because he's usually just not 2 sets to love up on players like this, That's the main thing. So, yeah, I mean, no idea, but certainly something that from this Wimbledon, it won't be like, this is the only thing that we remember is that Sinner defeated Alcaraz. It's also this, because anytime there's a situation that's like even remotely close, this is what's going to get mentioned, that Jannik Sinner was 0-2 down, and the opponent retired, and he was just another person 2 days later, 4 days later, and then eventually 6 days later.
He was, I mean, you've also got to give him credit, and he was obviously completely back to the drawing board as soon as he went back against Shell, and, super clinical. Novak didn't even come close, really. That was a bit of a whitewash by Novak's standard, I would have said. Fair play to him. He totally put it behind him, and it's also something to still win from, having had that happen to him. So, yeah, fair play to him. He still deserved the tournament, even if he was in that crazy position.
Trent, I mean, I always have issues with like thinking like that, because the butterfly effect and everything. If Jannik wins Roland Garros, we have these 2 guys. Well, maybe first of all, we might not have them in the final, but also if we still have them in the final, they will be in very different like states of mind. Does that actually help Jannik or Carlos? Who the hell knows? But obviously, yes. I mean, with how consistent he's been, Jannik had an actual shot at a calendar Grand Slam this year, probably. For the last 7 slams, he's lost injured to Medvedev, lost to Alcaraz, having 3 match points. That's it. He's won the other 4. So yeah, this was a year where potentially he could have won a calendar Grand Slam more than Carlos could have won a calendar Grand Slam. Clearly, considering that Alcaraz lost to Zverev in Australia, to Djokovic in Australia. Zverev was 24. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't feel confident enough to say that if Roland Garros was a different outcome, today would have been exactly the same, because clearly that's not really how it works. You mentioned Novak Djokovic already, so let's maybe talk about him. Yeah, I mean, how does this tournament make you feel in regards to Novak potentially winning number 25 at some point? You mentioned that the match was a bit of a whitewash, but wasn't that mostly because of just Novak not being fit enough to compete, to move well laterally? Yeah. And maybe from that standpoint, it's something that he can kind of take as a positive as well, that, I mean, I was injured, so maybe I can still compete with them. I don't know.
Yeah, I get the argument. I don't want to say anything about Novak being done, because it's the kind of conversation that so many people have regretted saying out loud. It's just not. He's a different breed. People will still maybe make the foolish mistake of underrating him. It's the same as Federer and Nadal. I used to say stuff about them all the time, and I'd look like an idiot a few months later. So I'm inclined to say he's still healthy enough. If he's still beating big players, if he's still making semis of slams, absolutely, he's still got a chance. And obviously, the US Open actually is still a decent place for him, despite the fact that he's had some tough losses there. Maybe you could argue, but for the other guys, it's definitely the kind of place where upsets can happen. I think that probably stands in Djokovic's favour, surprisingly. If he's fit, then you never know. I think for normally we'd be talking about Australia being like his best slam or Wimbledon, one or the other. But obviously with these guys being his health, in full fitness basically, or in full health-ish, you always are going to favour Jannik or Carlos, where at the US Open you could maybe see an upset happening. And he kind of needs them to be out at the moment to be in for a chance. I still don't think, he's not beating the two of them for sure. You could maybe beat one on a hard court. He did it to Alcaraz at the start of the year. People forget that as well. So I think he could beat one, but certainly not the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, whatever happens, he definitely has brought it for the slams this year. All of them, he played better than in the warm-ups, or didn't have warm-ups like at Wimbledon. But all of them, he basically brought some new motivation. He was hungry for it, definitely. He had moments where he looked like he might compete against these guys. He even defeated Alcaraz at the Australian Open. I think he needed an extremely tight Alcaraz to do it, but at the same time, it's already been a few times that Carlos played like that against him. So who says that it won't happen again? But yeah, for now, I mean, I'm still kind of undecided, mostly because if somebody beats these guys, finally, then why Novak wouldn't be, in it with a shot? This Wimbledon kind of says it again. I don't know on particularly that day, on Friday, on semi-final day. I don't know if he would have beaten most of the players in the draw because, again, his thigh or hip or whatever it was, that area, it just wasn't fine. He was not moving well. But then again, last year, he also made the final at Wimbledon basically on one leg, and nobody was even pushing him to move towards his forehand corner until Alcaraz showed up. So I definitely think that he could take advantage of a draw opening. Is it enough if one of these guys is out? I don't know. And for what it's worth, what I said about this being potentially positive, actually, that he was injured, that he can understand that, okay, I actually can compete like I did at Roland Garros, for example, even though that was also a 3-set match. I can compete, but I was injured. I don't think he's treating this like that, because from what he said during Wimbledon, during one of the pressers, he actually very much was looking at it like, this is just another example of my body breaking down later into a slam. And that this isn't just a one-time event. This isn't just a random injury I picked up. Next slam will be better. But he very much just said that this keeps happening to me, that I'm playing 4 or 5 good matches at a slam and then something comes up. And I guess that's probably the more pessimistic way to look at things. But yeah, it didn't seem like he was treating this as a positive too much.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think for Djokovic to be that candid, he normally does speak his mind. And I suppose that is probably quite discouraging for a lot of fans. But again, I'm seeing it from an outside perspective, and we've just seen Novak do crazy things. I don't know. Maybe he needs the self-belief of Avi or something like that to get him over the line. Maybe he's forgetting just how good he is. I still believe he can win an Slam. He's not quite out of it yet, I would say.
Yeah, I think he's almost out. But then again, if I was going to say who was the third favorite for this Wimbledon, it would probably be him. So he cannot be that far out of the race, considering that it only takes 2 players for him to potentially win one and maybe even do it pretty straightforwardly by what we've been watching. Well, let's maybe talk about Taylor Fritz then. I mean, we already kind of mentioned him. 2 set points in the 4th set. Maybe had a real shot to do more, but overall he cannot be too disappointed of this event. I mean, the guy was almost out of the tournament at the first hurdle, basically had no like meaningful results prior to the grass season this year. Then he wins 2 titles in the warm-ups, gets probably the toughest draw out of anybody with Pecci Pericard and Diallo in the first 2 rounds. Like, honestly, Alcaraz and Sinner get this kind of draw, and I'm not sure they survive. Okay, Sinner maybe I'm a little more certain about. But, to get through that and then to eventually get to the semis for the first time, also after some painful losses in the quarters in the past to Musetti and Nadal, must be big. I don't know if, I was probably in your camp. I never really felt like it was real. I never was like, oh yeah, Taylor might actually make a final here. I was always just treating it like, nah, it's a done deal. Never mind. But it's probably a little bit too much. I think I was maybe leaning into it a little bit too much.
I think it's an interesting conversation saying, Sinner and Alcaraz are top of the pops at the moment, and then who are the next kind of 2 or 3 in line, and then the rest. I mean? I would probably argue Fritz is there, probably with Draper and Novak. Yeah, those 3. Maybe some people are going to chuck Shelton in there after his run this tournament, but I think that's my feeling. Still Draper.
Are you talking about just Wimbledon or in general?
Oh, in general. I
mean, Zverev still has to be there, right? I mean,
no. Genuinely, no. I mean this.
If we're mentioning Taylor Fritz,
no, I mean this in the most logical way possible. I promise.
No, but if Taylor Fritz is in the conversation, that's Zverev is too. I mean, no.
I'm gonna say no. I'm sorry.
I think it's either both out or both in my book.
I mean, it depends how far back you look, right? But okay, well, what about you going to the US Open and you're like, who are the most likely semi-finalists, right? Would you put Zverev in there or would you put Fritz in there? I'd put Fritz in there.
But okay, Zverev is more likely to be a champion than Fritz is.
I don't think either of them are likely to be a champion.
Fair enough. Yeah. I think it's very much subjective, but I would say Fritz is basically destined to lose to Sinner Alcaraz in the final, and Zverev, I'd have some doubts, especially against Alcaraz.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You could definitely beat Alcaraz on a hard court, maybe. Yeah. Okay, I see your point. I still think.
Yeah, I mean, it's never mind. It's like the order is not too important. Yeah.
But the thing is, you still have to think about, how do they do it against the rest of the tour? Zverev's still the guy who's like losing crazy first, second rounds to anybody in slams. Fritz at the moment feels like he's pretty solid against anybody he's playing. It seems like he's not really got that many that many dips. Even I should say, he plays a pretty consistent high level and. I would trust him to get to the semis if he was like, 4th seed. Definitely depends where he is by the time we get to the US Open.
Yeah, I guess that's actually kind of one of the main things right now, that everybody this year is just thinking about tournaments in this way. So I see where I am in the draw, and then I basically have to get to wherever I will face Jannik or Carlos, and then whatever happens, if I play them, sure. I mean, it's just a good chance to a free hit basically. I think a lot of players are treating it this way. Perhaps they shouldn't, but that's kind of the reality of it. And I suppose that's kind of the main question right now as well when we're thinking about stuff like that. How confident are you that a player could take advantage of a draw opening up, meaning no Alcaraz or Sinner? And yeah, in that conversation, Fritz is definitely higher than Zverev. I do think so. So I guess I was Taylor, and actually we could mention these guys like Zverev, Medvedev, Tsitsipas, Well, I mean, they all had a pretty disastrous Wimbledon. They all lost in the opening round. I don't know who is the more, depressing topic to start with. Tsitsipas at least retired, but then again, also the quotes circulating from Goran Ivanisevic about him being like the most unprepared player he's ever seen, and that basically he's got so much mess off the court that he cannot help him with. He has to do it by himself. Medvedev playing very well in the warm-ups and then winning one match in 3 slams this season. Zverev, I think, is maybe the least depressing there because he's never reached a Wimbledon quarterfinal. So I don't think the expectations were like any high anyway. Like he could have gotten a run, but he would have still lost to Alcaraz or Sinner, obviously. So I think maybe for him, it's like the least disappointing result because he just never does well at Wimbledon anyway.
I would say so. I think I totally agree with Gene in the chat. Yeah, well, certainly recency bias. You definitely feel like that. I think it's a little tricky to totally count them out. They obviously can still get up to no good every so often, and I think. Do you know, actually, I was about to say Medvedev chances on hard courts. He's always got a chance, but honestly, the game's maybe just moved on a bit. I don't know if he's kept up at all. I don't know if, but when I say that, I kind of mean I don't think he's got a chance of beating Alcaraz and Sinner. I just don't. I don't know. Everybody's hitting the ball way bigger, and we've not seen it work for him in ages. And he's tried to go more aggressive, and it's just mental. Like it's all over the place. It's just not how he plays. So he's having I just don't see him picking up the pieces in time for the US Open in particular. I don't know. I don't know if he's ever going to be up there with the big guys ever again. I'm really not sure. And then Zverev actually has he obviously got to the Australian Open final. You know, he could do something, yada yada yada. But again, it feels for me like he's always gonna come close, but never ever do it. Like he's got the big enough game, and then he retreats into his shell when he does get close, and then that's that. And that's just perpetually going to be his destiny.
Yeah, I guess they kind of swapped because at the French, it was definitely Zverev who had the most disappointing exit. Just the way he performed against Novak, it was the kind of match that makes you think, okay, yeah, he's never doing it. I mean, how can you play like this? You know, how can you like not use your assets to that particular extent? But yeah, then again, Medvedev probably didn't care too much about losing early at the French, or at least, you know, again, not as much as Zverev would. Whereas here, yeah, I mean, I appreciate everything you said. I still have a feeling that if we actually got a Medvedev Alcaraz or a Medvedev Sinner, it would be pretty good. But, you know, he lost to Benjamin Bonzi in the opening round. So there's no way to really like sugarcoat it and then say that, no, yeah, he probably had a shot. He just wasn't even close to giving himself that shot. And Tsitsipas has become so irrelevant that, I mean, I don't really know what else to say about him. That gen is indeed in trouble. Andrei Rublev did the best out of them, but you know, again, that's a guy you never really think is beating these Alcaraz's Sinners of the world in a slam ever again. Yeah. So I don't know if the fourth round for him and the fact that he took a set of Carlos really changes all that much.
Yeah, I felt the same. Rublev's in exactly the same place he was, Damien, as I was going to say. He's trading water.
Yeah, we had a couple of pretty like surprising quarterfinalists as well. I think we might mention them, but actually there's one more player I guess we should talk about. But yeah, before I come to that, I just remembered, actually John reminded me the other day, but you said something about a couple of years ago, and if the outcome of the final was a little different today, it would have been even funnier to talk about that. But yeah, basically, do you still think Carlos Alcaraz is not getting double-digit slams?
Yes, I'll eat my words now. That was probably a bad prediction. He's going to get double digits, almost certainly. It just seems like a certainty at this point, right?
Jannik Sinner as well, I suppose, joining him?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
there's enough slams for the two of them.
They're both just so young. Like, at these numbers now, it's just unfathomable that they wouldn't win double digits, I guess, just by nature of the game and how long it is, I guess, how long careers are nowadays. So, yeah, that's how I feel. No.
Yeah, it seems like that to me too. And like we said earlier, we are still looking for that number 3 guy. And the moment we find him, maybe there's going to be a change up. But for now, seems like they can. Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to say that was honestly my thinking at the time. Because I remember thinking we've got, I can't remember who was on the scene at that point, probably Rune, guys like Rune, even maybe have said Musetti, could potentially get to these guys' levels. I don't know. There's a few of them anyway. Certainly Rune anyway, who you thought, oh, these guys could be just as good as the other two as well. But it's just not happened. I mean, these two are just so far ahead, and there's not going to be a move backwards. That's the thing. So now that they're established there, it feels like it's a certainty. Where at the time I was like, there could be a chance other guys kind of rule the roost with them, and Novak's still around in that. Yeah, it's just not happened.
Yeah, I've once put out a tweet that Musetti will be better than Sinner. I've since deleted it just so nobody finds it. But yeah, it's wild. I mean, I can see the logic. I can totally see why. I can even agree with myself from a couple of years ago. But I've basically learned from there that Musetti's playstyle or game is just really tough to execute. And yeah, even if he might be a magician, it's not really enough, I suppose. But yeah, sure. He was in the conversation as well. Yeah, Ben Shelton as well making the quarterfinals. That's somebody that our producer, who is on the screen right now, has been sort of like really hyping to do so well on grass, on clay, on hard courts, on ice, on mud. Basically, whatever surface Ben Shelton is playing on, you're going to see the founder of Talking Tennis going so hard at Skim and just saying, yeah, that guy is going to be amazing. He's going to make a semi. He's probably going to win a slam. Yeah, I mean, what did you think about his Wimbledon? Because obviously the way he got to play Sinner was so different than last year. I know it was around later, but, he didn't expend as much energy. He arrived... yeah, with good physical condition into the match, which was so different. And actually, we thought that Jannik might be in trouble after the elbow issues against Dimitrov. And the match was probably the most underwhelming of the fortnight on the men's side.
Yeah. Look, here's
Sinner Djokovic as well. Sorry. Yeah, I mean these two. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Here's how I feel about Ben Shelton. Big serve. Just mad wrist that just obviously creates this crazy pace. He just like basically slaps it. I'm not inclined to think that his serve is big. Of course it is, but he's just not that great a server. I don't know. Like I get it. He serves huge, but I don't think he's amazing. I'm gonna have to see his numbers now. I'm sure they're decent, and they probably are really good against players who can't control that pace as well. But against Alcaraz and Sinner, it's just not working. Like his placement's not that great. He just smacks it. Obviously, he's hitting it about 150 miles an hour sometimes. You would imagine the matchup's going to be fairly similar against Gio and Petri Pericard as well. It's like huge serve, and actually he does have holes from the back of the court. And I don't know if he's patching them up. And it's been a while now, and he still hasn't. I don't know. So for me, there's still loads of stuff he can improve, and he's quite always off, which is great. Loads of potential. He's not totally maxed out his game. So to get to the top 10 and actually have a really clean Wimbledon run up until that quarterfinal, pretty encouraging if you are a Shelton fan or an American. You just want one of the Americans to finally do something on the men's side, because it probably still ain't Fritz that's winning the slam, let's be honest. So I get what John said, our producer is saying, that Shelton could be the guy to do it. He's not there yet. He's not there yet, and it might be a while off. But yeah, okay, potential. That's what I'm thinking, David.
Yeah, I would probably place him higher on my list of like players to have a chance at winning a slam than Taylor. But it is a damning match. The way he played against Jannik, just grass, big serve, should be slim margins, but it really is not when you literally cannot do anything on return against a guy like that. You cannot do anything off the baseline. And yeah, it's disappointing that it ended up like this. I really thought it might be a high quality back and forth clash. But it is, like you said, he is still developing, and he has that big stage personality, that amazing form at the slams, which it comes from, I guess, two things: both the format suiting his game so well, but also the fact that he just loves the big stage and interacting with the crowd. So there is hope there, although the quarterfinal indeed ended up being a little disappointing. There were also a couple of pretty unexpected quarterfinalists: Flavio Cobolli and Cameron Norrie. So maybe if you want to touch on either of these guys, really, I mean, not to be expected that I would be in the quarterfinals, but then again, Nori has already done that a couple of times before. No, once.
Once, I think, once off the top of my head, pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure. I think
probably once.
We can talk about Cam first. As soon as he got to that match, obviously he was getting beat. We all knew that. But yeah, his run was great. He had some really good wins. Obviously, the win against Jarry was the standout one, and Jarry always a dangerous player on grass, big enough serve to be dangerous against anybody. And he played a really clutch match. Obviously, could have let it go after he lost that third set, and he did really well. The win against Tiafoe, also great. I don't know if Nori Nation are feeling great about their guy, because he's just never going to beat one of these guys, really. So he's never really going to win another big title. Of course, he won Indian Wells during the COVID era Masters, right? But apart from that, I just don't feel I don't feel overly hyped about Cam's chances of doing anything crazy. But yeah, still a good run. He did as much as he could, and Nori Nation should feel proud of that. And then for Kaboli, that's exciting. I think he's obviously his game has gotten so much better this season. The win against Marin was huge, actually, because I was feeling good about Marin doing some big things, and he kind of silenced that fairly easily. Actually, it was a tough match, and he did really well. And such a clinical performance against Menchik, who, to be fair, didn't really show up. But still, I don't know if you probably called that, Damien, but I don't know if everybody else would have called that. I feel excited about Kaboli. I don't feel excited about Cam. How do you feel, Damien?
That was very straight to the point. Kind of harsh, but sure. I don't know how much I feel excited about Kaboli after this run, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, he's fine on all surfaces. I don't know if I quite see, what Vange was talking about when he was like, we might have 3 Italians in the top 10 sometime soon. When I'm watching him, I'm just thinking, why is Arnaldi underperforming so much? Because to me, they're very similar as players. Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking, it shouldn't be. The gap shouldn't be this huge. But of course, it was fun to see this run, even if against Novak. Yeah, it was kind of just that one tie break that he stole. Otherwise, the match wasn't even that close. And yeah, Nori, the section he got out of was very competitive. So good on him for doing that. But yeah, it just never really felt like this was going to turn into more. And I was thinking to sort of start closing this show out. But actually, there are 2 more players that we really need to talk about. And these were also one of the main favorites for this Wimbledon. And Jack Draper, for the 2nd year in a row, loses in the 2nd round to Marin Cilic. And also in that section, there was Alexander Bublik in the opening round, loses to Jaume Munar. I think we all said after the draw came out that Bublik is not a lock to get to the 3rd round. It's Bublik. I don't care that he won Halle. Anything can happen. He also faced a pretty difficult opponent. I think we can start saying this about Jaume Munar in quicker conditions. But Draper, the way he lost, it's just for the 2nd straight year, Wimbledon was too much for him, pressure-wise.
Yeah, I think pressure was a huge part of it. But also one thing that Draper had mentioned is he's not great on grass yet. He's still not completely worked it out, and I do kind of get what he's talking about. Yes, he's got that title in Stuttgart, but the guy's he's not a top 10 player on grass, I would say. I think maybe people lean into the idea that obviously big serve, kind of lefty, that he's going to be really effective on the surface, but he's not quite there yet, and you could kind of see that. I mean, it was quite one-sided. You could argue, for a match against Cilic, who obviously has, he's been to finals, but he's obviously not at the same level he used to be. Yeah, you would expect it to maybe have been closer, and it just wasn't. So, it's a bit of a shame for Jack, and maybe, Damien, you're going to argue that, it was maybe just all pressure. It wasn't even just the deficiencies in his grass court game. I don't know. I'd probably have said it was a mix of the 2. Because he's still got a long way to go, I would say. What do you feel?
I don't know. I mean, we don't really have too many events on grass, but his performances in Queens have been very strong. I think he definitely deserves to be like a top 5-ish favorite at least for this tournament. I don't really understand what people are saying about him, like not being, let's say that not having the slam experience is like so important, and that's why he cannot be rated highly. The state of the ATP Tour right now is such that we have Alcaraz, Sinner, and then basically Draper has been like the most consistent player of the season until Wimbledon. So even if he's not like ahead of the pack of the rest of the pack by that much, he was still ahead of the pack. Yeah, I just think it's incredibly disappointing to do this for the second straight year. And I suppose it can work out like this. The pressure that is on Brits at Wimbledon is massive. Also, even though he had the experience from last year and he picked up so much of it all around the world in the last 12 months, obviously now he also entered Wimbledon with even higher expectations. Last year people were putting him into the semis. This year, some of them were probably thinking he might win the title. So, at least the very optimistic Brits. So I can get that. Marin Cilic, a former Wimbledon finalist, still a ridiculous ball striker, but I'm not really talking about like how, the fact that he lost to him, just how tense he was during that entire affair, how many forehands he shanked. And that was just very similar to the performance from last year when he suddenly goes 5 sets with Elias Ymer, but you think, okay, he's shaken off the early nerves and loses to the aforementioned Cameron Norrie in 3. I would not favor Taylor Nurlan against Carlos at the US Open, but he'd have a shot. He'd have a punter's chance, much more than against Sinner. Again, it's just play style thing, really, or maybe even like temperament thing or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, for Draper, I think maybe this was the most disappointed player after this Wimbledon. Just especially the fact that he did it for the second straight year. Not as much of a tragedy, I suppose, for Bublik, but the fun in his game, like recently, obviously Bublik is wild and crazy, but he can actually be very like positively reckless, and that was gone from his game when he was playing Munar. I think without being a psychologist or without ever speaking, no, I actually spoke to him live, but like without ever speaking to him, let's say off camera, off microphone, whatever, I don't think we don't need to know that he just got into his own head there, and that's the frustration that he was showing was mostly related to the fact that he was really expecting to do something big here.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that, Damon. Totally.
I mean, obviously this ATP Weekly was like a Wimbledon episode first and foremost. This week coming up, or actually, just started, we have 3 ATP events as well.
I have one very important thing to mention before we move on to next week.
Go.
Scott Duncan was able to win a challenger in Nottingham today.
2018 in the final.
2018, and he saved 13 match points. 13. I've not even heard of that before. That's insane. I don't know if you Damien, you surely know if there's a stat that tops that, but it was mad.
I remember a 2018 final as well, super tiebreak, but I don't think the match points reached that high. No.
It's mad.
It was Kissler and Mike Schack winning an indoor challenger in Germany, I think. Eckenthal, maybe. 2019, I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it was 13 match points, no.
Insane. Anyway, I knew you'd have seen the scoreline. Mad.
That was yesterday, though, right? Yeah, yesterday.
It was yesterday, was it yesterday? Didn't realize that.
Yeah, because it would have been before the semis in the singles. Yeah. Duncan McKinley beating Bruin Whitehouse. Indeed, I didn't expect to talk about them today, but why not? I was just going to say basically that we have Gstaad, Bostad, Dos Cabos, obviously one of them on hard, 2 on clay. And the fields are very weak for what we usually get, honestly, on the ATP Tour. I feel like Los Cabos especially, they will have some thoughts on whether this event is correctly placed in the calendar, because I've never seen an ATP qualifying draw just like be that the list be completely maxed out, and basically anybody who signs up, even with a ranking of 1,400, gets in. And the other events are suffering a little too with their entry lists. I don't know if we will talk about anything in particular, to be honest. Casper Ruud is back in Gstaad. If that is a big narrative, I don't know.
How many has he won there, Damien? Do you know?
Hmm?
How many is Casper Ruud won in Gstaad?
2. He's only played it twice, and he won it both times, 2021 and 2022.
There you go. Perfect. I guess he's no longer a vulture, right, after his Masters title. It would be nice to add another one to the list anyway if he does get through.
Yeah, the draw we have on our screens right now is Los Cabos, of course. That's going to be pretty unwatchable for the Europeans out here, as obviously they also play far into the day, considering the sun and the heat. But yeah, I don't think we're going to dwell on it. Bill Ackman probably not for ATP Weekly either. I'm going to say
that's a big story. That's a big story. I'm sure not a lot
but
of
like
people know about it.
I think we typically, at least when I'm doing it, I think we typically just stay away from challenges like whatsoever, even if it's a big story. I think we just stick to main tour events. But yeah, I am going to say one thing. Today, Bill Ackman put another wall of text on Twitter, and it's just so funny because he tends to justify that performance like 5,000 times. And honestly, I thought this was just like we should forget that this ever happened type of match. But no, what he said today was so ridiculous. I was considering to just tweet about it or like quote tweet it, but it was during the final, and I was just thinking, nah. I mean, that's just okay. I'm not just gonna leave this topic now, but I can say this on stream. So basically, he said that 10 days before he played Newport, he played an exhibition, like a Pro-Am tournament in Newport as well, with Richie Renneberg, 59-year-old, by the way. And he said he played great there. First of all, he played great compared to that match in Newport. He said that because the opponents in Newport were holding back, Tomic and Jessica, because they were holding back, it turned to a farce. So they made matters worse. And also, Jack Sock asked to play outside, and Bill is not used to playing deuce side because he's also playing outside, and that's why the match was horrible. And there's a whole paragraph there. If you can go down just like a tiny bit more, but basically he says it was good that he played poorly because it got a lot of coverage, and here. Jack also chose the outside, and I have been playing the outside for the last year. I was also serving into the 1:30 p.m. sun with a shot clock, a new experience for me. And to make matters worse, the other side held back, making the whole thing look like a farce. I mean, if Tomic and Jessica weren't holding back, it would like be over in 30 minutes, and he'd just get like shots at the net 25 times. Basically he'd just basically get the ball on his body probably 10 times and be on the floor. I don't know, maybe his eye would have popped out. It's just leave it be, man. Okay, you showed up, you played, you were horrible. I mean, you weren't horrible. He would probably beat me in tennis. I suck, but like I don't try to buy my way into the sport professionally.
Did you watch any of the match, Damien, out of interest?
Yeah, I watched it, and it was a farce. He is right about that. I at least appreciate that he accepted that it was a farce, because Sock, Tomic, Jessica, they were not actually playing. Like they were just literally feeding him soft balls so that he can do whatever with them. Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
It was a farce. It was like an exhibition. Like the intensity was, not from a professional tennis match. No.
Yeah. Jesus. Yeah. Mental. I don't think we need to get into why these kind of things shouldn't happen. It's just insane. But yeah, here's hoping that it's something we don't have to talk about again, Damien.
Yes, I agree, and this is exactly, Snehil, why I didn't post that tweet in the end, because I just figured just leave the guy be, whatever. Paolo Maldini, when he played the Challenger doubles match, he just said right after, okay, this is my one and done. This is my one and only professional appearance. He's sticking to it for now, at least. We'll see. Maybe he has an idea. I think Paolo Maldini might be the same age as Bill Ackman, actually. I'd watch it. Diego Forlan, it was way more of an actual, sporting event.
I mean,
he played some seniors tennis. He was actually
a professional athlete, obviously. It makes sense.
Yeah, professional athlete in another sport, but even in tennis, he was better than the average amateur player. Let's just say that. Anyway, let's not talk about Bill Ackman too much. I guess this will be it. ATP Weekly post Wimbledon, so obviously a lot is dedicated to that. There will be a WTA Weekly as well at a time that I don't remember. There will be, so just check the channel for that. Oh, tomorrow. That's basically our time frame as it seems. Thank you, Jack. And I don't really know what to say to end this. I'm already thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the next 10 minutes. So I just completely got lost in the middle of the sentence there. But thank you. And it was great talking to you as usual.
No, that was great fun, Damien. I really enjoyed it. I always happy to unload my thoughts about a big match with you. So really, really happy. Thank you. That was good. Yeah,
thanks to everybody in the chat. And we have somebody on our screen.
Jack, is that a Nadal hat?
It is.
Nadal
yeah. I was in Mallorca.
I've seen you wear it a couple of times now, and I've been meaning to ask. But the thing is, that Nadal logo there also looks a bit Murray-ish, if you like.
It's
a little, just from a distance. But I think, are we wearing either the same or very similar? Yeah, I think we're wearing more or less the same hats.
Is that because of Ivan Ivanov?
No, but I did see the tweets today.
No, Ivan Ivanov won the boys singles at Wimbledon today, and he's a Rafa Nadal Academy.
I see.
Prospect.
I went to Rafa Nadal Academy last month. Got a little paddle tennis lesson. So,
you did some. So you were just in Mallorca. You went there for the day.
Just for the day. Yeah, just for the day. Just a wee 90-minute paddle session. It was good. So I like the hat. It's good.
In Mallorca for 90 minutes.
No, I was at the academy for 90 minutes.
Okay.
Just to do a paddle list.
That makes sense.
It was good. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. Maya Revati is also in the Rafa Nadal Academy. I actually didn't know that, but I do remember her making some waves last year. And it looks like Revafi, Damne. That's a pretty decent duo for you guys. Anyway, once more, thank you to everybody in chat. Thank you, Jack. See whenever we will on the Talking Tennis channel, which WTA Weekly tomorrow. After that, we will see what our content plans are. When is Alex Ala playing next? Anyway, see ya. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.